Hello and welcome to Middle East Matters, our weekly roundup with reports from across the region, coming up in this week's programme. Just days after it was recaptured from the grasp of the Islamic State group, we go inside the Syrian city of Manbij. As locals celebrate, others recount the horrors and hardships they endured under jihadist rule. With unemployment high, more and more Palestinians are crossing the border to find work in Israel. But it's a route that's also becoming popular with those wishing to attack Israelis. And with record numbers of migrants flooding into Germany, we look at how one group of Syrian refugees are using the latest technology to make life easier for new arrivals. First, the Pentagon says the Islamic State group is now on the ropes in Syria. After 2 months of bitter combat, the US-backed Syrian Democratic Forces have finally pushed the last jihadist fighters out of the city. Since the militants' departure, locals have taken to the streets to celebrate. With more on yet another setback for the extremists in the region, here's Catherine Viette.
This woman burns one of the symbols of the Islamic State group, a niqab she was forced to wear. And these men shave off their beards, a gesture of defiance against the militants. Dancing and cheering can be seen and heard in the streets of Manbij. Members of the Syrian Democratic Forces, made up mainly of Kurdish fighters, are welcomed as heroes.
The fighting in Manbij is over, and now we need to protect it by deploying our forces around the town and on the roads leading to it, in order to prevent the Islamic State group from coming back.
The loss of Manbij is a heavy blow to IS. The city was one of the last lines of communication between Turkey and Raqqa, the proclaimed caliphate's capital. Manbij also served as a transit point for foreign jihadists. Residents are celebrating their newfound freedom.
I feel happiness, I feel joy. It's like a dream. I'm dreaming. I cannot believe it. I cannot believe it. Things I saw, no one saw. I'm unwell.
For the past 2 years, the people lived under the harsh and arbitrary laws of the Islamic State group. Many parts of the city were turned into places of terror.
Here, they used to execute and decapitate people. It was a daily occurrence. They'd kill people for no reason.
As a last act of revenge, when fleeing the city to Jarablus, some 40 kilometers away, the IS fighters rigged explosives, destroying much of the infrastructure.
The Islamic State group burned everything. Buildings and shops, they left nothing. They also took many people as human shields as they fled to Jarablus, including one of our families.
According to the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, IS fighters have used around 2,000 civilians as human shields. And during the battle to retake the city, another 500 to 700 have died. And with booby traps left behind, that number's expected to rise.
All the houses are full of mines. We asked the people in charge of clearing the mines to do something because many people are being killed because of that.
While clearing away booby traps may be the SDF's priority, with limited means, it's likely to take a while. Their other objective, to reconquer the town of Al-Bab, 50 kilometers southwest of Manbij. Al-Bab is the former stronghold of the militant group in Syria.
Next, over 50,000 Palestinians have permits to work in Israel, while thousands more cross the border illegally to make a living. But security is tight along the frontier. Since October, more than 20 Palestinians have used the same route to carry out attacks against Israelis. Among them, 2 cousins from the West Bank town of Yatta, who killed 4 people in a Tel Aviv market back in June. Our correspondent Iris Makler has been to Yatta, where hundreds are still gearing up to make the crossing into Israel to earn some money.
Palestinians working on a building site in Jerusalem, a scene repeated all over Israel. Despite the conflict, their labour's vital to the Israeli economy and to the families of at least 75,000 Palestinians working here. In the town of Yatta in the West Bank, this family's gathering to say goodbye to their oldest son. Unemployment here is high, so Amir is one of the Palestinians who goes to Israel to work. He can earn 5 times as much there. And if he finds work, he stays for up to 2 or 3 months at a time.
I have no alternative. If I don't do this, I won't survive. I'll have to wash dishes like a housewife.
But there's a catch. It's illegal. Israel carries out security checks, and married men are preferred. Young single men have carried out most of the attacks against Israeli civilians. So teenagers like Amir find it hard to get permits.
We are extremely worried about his safety, and we are always in contact with him by telephone.
His father's relieved that this time Amir will cross with his cousin Mohammed, but they're going with a driver they haven't used before.
Our last driver was caught. He was arrested and his car was taken. His trial starts tomorrow.
Israel is worried about attackers coming in with these workers. The driver, who doesn't want to be identified, says he makes sure he's taking workers, and no one dangerous, by checking their bags.
One time a Palestinian went to Beersheba in Israel to the bus station there and carried out a terror attack. The driver who took him got 8 years in jail, so I don't take chances.
To get across, they have to get around the Israeli military, and there are a lot of vehicles out tonight. Our translator is worried.
There's another car. Oh my God.
They leave the road and head out into the desert. They see headlights and can't turn back. Luckily, the car turns out to be Palestinian. The driver decides to keep going, but turns off his headlights.
The soldier has lights. I see him, but he can't see me.
Oh my God. Another soldiers. Oh my God, they're chasing us.
They drive like this for more than an hour and finally escape the Israeli soldiers. Then they meet a second car coming in from Israel. It speeds off, taking the 2 cousins on their way. Soon the driver gets a call to say they've made it. This was his 8th drive today. It's now 11 p.m. and he still has 1 more to go. He says that makes around 50 people he's smuggled across just in this one car. And tomorrow at dawn, he starts all over again.
Running for over a kilometre through the heart of Istanbul, Istiklal Avenue has been the city's main commercial street for centuries. In its heyday, it was bustling with shoppers and revellers who enjoyed its upmarket bars and boutiques. But a recent wave of deadly bomb attacks, as well as last month's failed coup attempt, have seen footfall dwindle and businesses shut up shop. Clément Bonero reports.
With its famous cafes, elegant shops and trendy bars, Istiklal is often seen as the heart of Istanbul. But in the wake of recent attacks, the avenue faces an uncertain future.
After the terrorist attacks, we had a coup attempt, which was also an act of terrorism. These acts have harmed Turkey's economy. Today, the situation's complicated, but I'm sure things will go back to normal at some point.
Dozens of shops and cafes on Istiklal have closed, while international chains like Starbucks and Pizza Hut have moved to other neighborhoods. Meanwhile, secular Turks and Western tourists say the area has become too conservative. Some bars have been replaced by shisha cafes that don't serve alcohol.
I see the problem as the arrival of thousands of tourists from Arab countries, and there's an influx of people from the countryside. All that has driven a change in mentalities around here.
Business owners say soaring rents have driven many investors out of business.
There are shops up for rent at $30,000, $40,000, or depending on the size, up to $100,000 a month. Here, the most expensive rent in the area is $400,000. 10 years ago, these rents would have been a tenth of what they are now.
Turkey's government has announced new measures to boost its economy and attract more visitors. Tourism revenue dropped 35% in the second quarter of this year, its sharpest fall in 17 years.
And finally, red tape and bureaucracy can be a real headache for anyone hoping to set up a new life in a new country. But one group of Syrian refugees in Germany hope they can alleviate the problem. They've designed a new smartphone application to help other migrants plough their way through the paperwork. Josh Vardy brings you more.
The first app to be designed by refugees for refugees. These two entrepreneurs worked on the program to help others deal with German bureaucracy, which they say has often driven them bureau crazy.
I was shocked by long waiting line, and also when we signed the paper, we signed in German. We don't know what we are saying.
Within the app, users can get help filling out forms by gathering their information in one easily accessible place. They can also find help with housing and get info on opening a bank account. The pair were among a team of 6 Syrians who put the app together. They all studied at Berlin's REDI School of Digital Integration. 19-year-old Gaith enrolled 2 months after arriving in Germany.
At the first session, we were doing some brainstorming. We were discussing what problems that we had and how technology could help solving these problems. And we had 2 main issues. The first was the language and the other was bureaucracy.
Asylum seekers are becoming essential components of the German workforce, especially in the IT sector where 43,000 jobs are up for grabs. Migrants are also creating jobs in the country. One study showed that they employed 1.3 million people in 2014, a jump of over 30% from 2005.
OK, that's it for this week's edition of Middle East Matters. Do stay with us here on France 24. There's more world news and headlines coming up.